Order, order. Can honourable members leave the chamber quietly, please? I'm now moving on to the next debate. Thank you. Order, order. I will call Alistair Strathern to move the motion. I'll then call the Minister to respond. Just to remind colleagues, there will be there will be no opportunity for the member in charge to wind up in this debate, as is the convention for 30 minutes debates. Order, order. Alistair Strathern to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr Pritchard. It's a pleasure, as always, to serve under your chairship. And can I just start by welcoming the Minister to her place too. It's a real pleasure to see her in this role, and I know not just the experience she'll bring as someone who's directly worked in children's social care, but also her compassion and drive to improve situations for young people right across the country will be a powerful motivator to make sure we deliver the change we've committed to as a government, and I'm sure will be to the benefit of kinship carers right across the country and in my constituency over the coming years. I'm delighted too to be able to chair the second debate that I've held on kinship care, having held one in the immediate aftermath of the last government strategy earlier this year. As an MP, you get to meet, I think it's fair to say, quite a wide range of campaigners, all of whom very powerful. Some, I have to say, more convincing than others, but there can be no group more powerful or moving to work with than kinship carers. I was privileged enough before I was an even MP to be grabbed by Carol and Amanda, two kinship carers in my then constituency, and talk through some of the challenges they were facing. It was impossible not to be moved by their determination to do right by the young people in their care, but also young people in kinship care right across the country. And so we stepped forward and agreed to work together. I was soon to find too that kinship carers are rightly an incredibly tenacious group of campaigners. When 1 week after being elected, Carol and Amanda pitched up at my surgery to ask what I'd managed to do so far and what I'd be doing in the next week to take their cause forward. It should have come as no surprise then that 1 month after being re-elected, albeit in a slightly different constituency, they would be beating down my door again, because this is a cause that matters. Kinship carers do amazing work on behalf of the young people in their care right across the country. They step up at a moment of real trauma for a young person in their life and ensure through love, compassion and dedication that everything possible is done to give that young person the stability, that common identity and that compassion they need to thrive. I'll happily give way.
Equally tenacious as well as everyone else is in this room. And last year in Northern Ireland was some 3,801 children in care, and we welcomed the boost for foster carers back in the earlier part of this year, but what didn't happen was the boost for kinship carers. So does the honourable member agree that there must be more financial provision for kinship caring across all this great United Kingdom?
I thank the honourable member for his incredibly poignant remarks, as always in these debates. I think I'm yet to have a debate here where he hasn't brought something to the table, and I couldn't agree more that we need to be thinking about the breadth of support kinship carers get, and I'll be hopefully touching on some of those points later in my remarks. As a former councillor and lead for children's services, I was also privileged to get to work very closely with kinship carers and get to see firsthand the impact they could have on transforming the outcomes for the young people in their care, making sure in those difficult moments they had that stability of place, that familiar face, that retention of their identity needed to be able to be as resilient as possible in the face of more traumatic circumstances than many of us will ever have to comprehend or really grapple with personally. It comes as no surprise then that the Independent Review of Social Care a few years ago remarked quite clearly that kinship carers deliver far better outcomes than many other parts of the care sector, but are often underserved by a care network that just is not set up to fully consider them, to fully recognise their needs and to fully embrace the role they can play in supporting young people through that really difficult moment. Very happily.
Not only should have equal access to vital financial allowances, but should also get the training and support they need when they take on this vital role.
Thank my honourable friend, the member for Darlington, for that really powerful intervention. I think it highlights the breadth of support we need to be considering for kinship carers, not just the pilots that have already been announced, but also some of that wider training and therapeutic support needed to make sure kinship carers can really be equipped to support the young people they're taking on care responsibilities for. But as we come to this debate at a really critical time for kinship carers right across the country, they finally are having their voice heard, and we as parliamentarians owe it to them to live up to the commitments we've been making over the last few years. It was fantastic at a recent reception to hear Bridget Phillipson listening so attentively to one of the kinship carers brought along, Poppy, talking through some of the challenges she's faced in kinship care and some of the things she'd like to change to make sure that finally kinship carers and those in kinship care across the country are fully supported by the government and by their local authorities. Absolutely.
I'm grateful, and I would like to compliment my honourable friend on securing this debate and being a champion for kinship carers, not just in this Parliament but previously. But does he recognise that the situation for kinship families is urgent, and the inaction that we saw from the previous government means many kinship carers are unable to continue? This would push more children back into an already overstretched care system. And does he agree with me, welcome though the 10 pilots are, the best way to support families would be a non-means tested mandatory allowance for all kinship families?
I thank my honourable friend for that powerful intervention too. I think it's really important to recognise that urgency. We've inherited a situation where 1 in 8 kinship carers are worried that they might not be able to carry on that care responsibility, let alone the thousands of other young people right across the country who could be placed into very productive and meaningful and nourishing kinship care placements, but currently are denied that by our antiquated children's social care system. I will indeed.
Thank you very much for giving way. As has just been mentioned, many kinship carers are actually on the breadline. They're not managing. And is it not right that we should be looking to ensure that instead of patting them on the back and putting our arm around the kinship carers, they should be receiving adequate allowances to give the children they're looking after the best chances in life?
I thank the Honourable for that powerful intervention too. I think he violently highlights the fact that financial support is clearly a crucial part of the package that kinship carers need. I'm really excited that this government is finally funding and bringing forward the £44 million needed to get on with those pilots. Though I'd also think that it's not just an arm around them, actually there is a wider range of therapeutic support and advice that is really important too. So financial and non-financial support will be crucial, and absolutely.
Does the honourable member agree with me that this is the 44 million and the 10 pilot projects is a groundbreaking initiative on the part of this government, something that has been long awaited, long campaigned for by kinship care families, and this is just the start, but we can't have everything that we might want right now.
Absolutely. And I think what we've seen from the new Secretary of State, from the Minister and from this government since taking office is an urgency that's starting to finally meet the needs of the moments and the needs of young people in kinship care and their carers. Whether it's making sure we finally have a kinship care ambassador to actively champion the role of kinship carers and to take to task local authorities who aren't always providing the support they need, as some kinship carers in this room might be able to attest to. Whether it's bringing forward statutory guidance and the framework to ensure that we've got more in place to recognise the values of wider family networks in planning decisions for young people and to do everything we can to remove some of the barriers to placing young people in kinship care, or as absolutely.
I thank the honourable member for giving way, and he knows, being the previous member for Mid Bedfordshire, how profoundly important this is for constituents like Amanda and Carol, who are tenacious. Does the honourable member agree with me that it's important for us to make sure there isn't a postcode lottery between local authorities and there's an equality of service across borders?
Absolutely, and I think not just the new kinship care ambassador, but that guidance for local authorities that were brought out earlier this year will be important in delivering that, as well as making sure local authorities are held to account for delivering that local offer for kinship carers too. I think it's an incredibly important issue, and it cannot be left to the luck of a postcode whether a kinship carer and that young person is getting the support they need. I will give way to both of you, and then I will have to make some progress.
Thank you very much for giving way. I'd like to congratulate my honourable friend on securing this debate. I think it's a really important point about ending that postcode lottery. And does he agree with me that that also extends to businesses and employers being more flexible when it comes to giving leave to kinship carers? Kinship carers often take on this responsibility at a moment of great crisis. It's a really difficult moment, and we need to do more to ensure that they're supported to take the time off from work that they need to look after those in their care.
I would completely agree with my honourable friend, who, as with typical great foresight, has already alluded to one of the points I'm hoping to touch on later in my speech. I'll just quickly give right here.
And does the honourable member agree with me that we must firstly say thank you to all of those kinship carers, particularly the 600 that are in my city, but also that we must recognise that when children cannot be with their biological parents, it's often through tragedy and trauma, and that those kinship carers don't get the opportunity as often adopted and foster carers do, with training and being ready, and that needs to be highlighted.
I'd absolutely echo those sentiments too. I think it cannot be right that young people who've gone through exactly the same level of trauma, exactly the same difficulties early in their life, can get very different levels of support depending on the statutory context of how they're then looked after. And that has to be something we're considering as part of the wider reforms of social care. I think it'd be fair to say, Mr Pritchard, that there is a consensus in the room that there are some very exciting announcements that have been coming forward from this government on kinship care, but a real desire too to make sure we're doing justice to kinship carers in thinking about how we can go further too. I'm really glad that in the budget we very clearly set out as a government the need to think about children's social care reform more widely. For too long this has been something that's been kicked down the road. And as the independent review of children's social care rightly laid out, we're presiding over a system now which is not delivering very good outcomes for young people, is not delivering very good outcomes for their wider family network, and is doing so at great cost to the taxpayer. That cannot be allowed to continue. And it's so important to me, and to everyone I can see in this room today, that kinship carers are a big part of how we put that right too. We know outcomes with kinship carers are better. We know that for every 1,000 people we place in kinship care, it will often end up costing us, the taxpayer, £40 million less, and will often ensure that they are better supported in their life to go on and earn up to £20 million as a cohort more than those who would have been placed in private social care. This is just simple maths, and a kind of cold, hard, brutal underlining of the scale of the opportunity we're missing if we don't do right by kinship carers. Yes.
The honourable member for giving way. The economic point that he makes is powerful, because this is not just about long-term cost savings that he's alluded to in terms of improved outcomes for these children, but there are actually short-term cost savings in paying kinship carers an allowance universally, not just 10 pilots across the country, and also in extending employment leave through the Employment Relations Bill. So will he join me in pushing his own front bench to be more ambitious, because actually it will help the Chancellor find many of the savings that she's looking for?
I hope the honourable member knows I will always be an ambitious advocate for kinship carers. I think in our minister I've been meeting my match in a very ambitious advocate for them too, and I'm really looking forward to working with her and the Secretary of State, who I know has got a real ambition for kinship carers and children's social care more generally, to make sure we're doing right by those failed all too often by the system we've inherited. I'm very quickly now going to have to make progress to ensure I can give the Minister good time to respond to some of these points, but I'd like to briefly highlight 3 areas where I think further consideration and further action could be welcome. The pilots are fantastic news, and if we haven't settled them where they are yet, I could not recommend more Hertfordshire and Central Bedfordshire for consideration as local authorities. Well, anyone else to intervene to support that? Great. But going forward, I would urge the Minister to make sure no delay is taken to make sure that these cannot be brought forward as quickly as possible, because while I absolutely recognise the value of compelling evidence based in policy making, there's a very clear case that this financial support will make a real meaningful difference for kinship carers and potentially help relieve further cost burdens already being felt in the system right now. Alongside that, as other members have alluded to, far too many kinship carers and their families can't access the therapeutic support their young people and wider family networks need to be able to navigate these moments of trauma as effectively as possible. I know that there's been some moves to rename the adoption fund, and that's clearly had some positive benefits in terms of improving some kinship carers' access to that. But just 1 in 7 of even eligible kinship carers are currently benefiting from therapeutic support approved through that funding, and others aren't eligible either yet. So any measures that can be thought to widen access and to put that on par with foster carers in another part of the care system can only be welcomed. Additionally, I'm really welcoming the government's ambition to look again at things like parental leave. We've seen real action from the government already on this in terms of its expansion of workers' rights. But it can't be right that some of those who are least prepared to take on family responsibility, who have to do it at the shortest notice, with no planning at all, often in some cases, because of the very nature of the responsibility that kinship care comes from, receive no support at all. And I would urge the Minister to do everything she can to voice a need for consideration of kinship care leave as part of that wider allowance. I'm so excited to be part of a government, to be part of a party that now is taking this issue seriously and showing real leadership. I'm really looking forward to working with everyone in this room to take forward our shared ambition to do right by some of the kinship carers who've joined us here today and many more right across the country. Because meeting with a kinship carer, meeting with a young person in care experience, you can be under no illusion of the urgency of the case for change, the need to put right some of the things they're experiencing, and to me to make sure we're doing all we can to support their love and their determination to ensure no other young person has to go through the challenges that the care system is currently forcing them to. I'd like to thank the Minister for listening so attentively, for colleagues for intervening so forcefully, and I'd like to apologise for those who I wasn't able to take interventions from in the end. It is so nice to see such interest in this issue. I very much hope to be able to work with you all and the APPE Chair to take forward some of the exciting areas we've been discussing today.
The question is that this House has considered government support for kinship carers. Minister.
Thank you, Mr Pritchard. I want to congratulate the Honourable Member for Hitchin on securing this important debate. I know they have a keen interest in support for kinship carers, and it's great to hear his passion and his advocacy for kinship families in his constituency, and indeed to hear the interventions from so many members across the chamber, and equally passion for improving the situation for kinship carers, even those that were unable to intervene as well. So I would just like to reassure everyone, I hear the strength of the conversations, I hear the strength of the arguments and the passion, and I will take that with me in my work as I work in this space. Now, this government's mission is to break down barriers to opportunity and to give every child the best start in life, and that includes the amazing role that kinship carers play. And I just want to thank all kinship carers for the excellent caring work that you do and the love and compassion that you show to the children and your loved ones that you care for and that you look after. I give way?
Very much.
Grateful for the emphasis and the government's focus on kinship carers. We're all desperately waiting the announcement about the 10 pilot areas. But can I just ask the Minister, does she recognise that this trial alone offers little reassurance to people like my constituent, Elaine Duffy, who was working full-time, had to go part-time, had to withdraw her pension savings in order to adapt her home for her 3 grandchildren who she cares for, and she still receives no financial support, no state support. They're looking for some reassurance from this new government. Can the Minister offer any?
Yeah, I thank my honourable friend for the example that he's given, and if you would just allow me to continue, I will be addressing these inconsistencies across local authorities and some of these types of real life situations that we're hearing and that we know about and that we recognise are not good enough. So I will continue and I will explain how we are addressing some of this, or how we've already begun to address this as a new government. Now, during my first visit as a minister, I met with kinship carers, and it was very clear to me that the challenges I witnessed years ago when I was indeed a children and family social worker are still being felt today, and that is shocking. And indeed, when I was listening to many of the stories similar to the one the Honourable Member just explained, I was very troubled by it. Indeed, how can you not be? But we are in government, we want things to change, and change has begun. Evidence shows that children in kinship care often do better in school, they have better health outcomes, and they do better in later life in terms of employment and the whole ability to socialise. Kinship carers, as I've already said, are to be thanked, to be applauded and to be celebrated for providing a safe and loving home for children. Children who can no longer live with their parents but instead are being cared by family members and by friends who love them. This government recognises, I'm going to make some progress, but as I make progress, if I have more time, I will let you in. This government recognises the important role that kinship carers play. Our manifesto is committed to working with local government to support children in kinship care and kinship carers. We are already making progress, as we've already heard. The Chancellor in doing the budget, announced £40 million trial to a new financial allowance for kinship carers. This is equivalent to the allowance for foster carers. This will take place initially in up to 10 local authorities. Now, I've already been lobbied on this, and I will say, and again now, and I will say it will be that we are looking at how this will be rolled out, but you will need to be patient with this, and that we will get the information to you as soon as possible. And I recognise the desire for it in your local authorities. I'm going to make some progress because I want to be able to respond, but if I have time, I will. Now, this is the single biggest investment made by any government in kinship care to date. Now, our ambition is that all kinship carers will get the support that they need to care for their children. It's important that we continue to build the evidence base to find out the benefit, the financial support for kinship families. Now, I have no doubt that kinship families will already be able to tell me much of these benefits, but it is very important that we take this process. Helping kinship carers with financial challenges is critical to give children in care the opportunity to thrive. In October, during Kinship Care Week, I was delighted to announce the appointment of the first ever National Kinship Care Ambassador, Janie Davis, who will advocate for kinship children and their carers. She has already been to me to advocate for them. The Ambassador will work directly with local authorities to improve services for kinship families and share best practice across areas. My department has also published new kinship care statutory guidance for local authorities to help local authorities to apply a consistent approach. This sets out the vital support and services local authorities should provide to kinship families. This guidance confirms a requirement for local authorities to publish their local offer in a clear, accessible way so that more kinship families get the help that they need. Now, in terms of workplace entitlement for kinship carers, I've met with many kinship families since I became the Children's Minister, and I recognise the challenges that many kinship carers face in continuing to work alongside taking in and raising a child. I'm delighted that on the 6th of November 2000, this year, the Department for Education introduced kinship leave, offering a pay and leave entitlement to all eligible staff who become kinship carers. As a department leading on support for kinship carers, we believe we should be an exemplar employer offering a model for others to follow. Now, I'm going to be fair, I'm going to give this gentleman way first.
Very grateful to the Minister for giving way. In my constituency of North West Cambridgeshire, we have a huge number of kinship families, and Peterborough City Council is doing a lot of work around that. They have sent the Minister a letter, and I think they're going to be following up with the business case next week. So I'm, of course, not going to ask for a commitment to the Minister, but can she reassure me that that will be taken into consideration when deciding which local authorities will be included in the trial?
So there we are, never lobbying. I recognise the local authorities and the letter, and there will be a process that will be rolled out, and we'll give everybody an opportunity to apply for that. I'll give way over here as well. Well, did you still? Yeah.
Minister, thank you. I'm grateful. Will she consider the Isle of Wight as one of the 10 local authority areas to benefit from any budget money? The Isle of Wight's an excellent place to trial such things.
I'm sorry. Repeat what I've already said. It still stands. I'll give him.
I want to just congratulate the Minister on securing the DFE as being a kinship-friendly employer. There are other employers in the country, John Lewis, B&Q, Card Factory, who have done amazing things around kinship care leave. Is there any consideration that she can think of that might bring some of those best practice examples together that we could roll out through our government structures to support employers in becoming kinship-friendly employers?
She makes a very significant point, and there's lots more that needs to be done in this space. And the point that she's also made is, my honourable friend has made, demonstrates much more work that's needed in this space as well. I will give way.
I'd like to thank the Minister for giving way and also for her leadership on this really important issue. I know she cares an awful lot about it, and to congratulate my honourable friend for securing the debate and say a huge thank you to all the brilliant kinship carers here with us today and across the country for the amazing work they do as the silent, often unheard majority of the children's social care system. The last government had, I think, the right prescription, but probably the wrong dose, and I've said that on a number of occasions. I really welcome the fact that the government have announced this next wave of funding for kinship care, but also in the budget, £250 million additional in 25-26 for reforming children's social care, with a commitment at the spending review to look at the whole system, which is a really major commitment. I congratulate the Minister on securing that. To reiterate three very quick and simple points. One is that I'd ask the Minister to try and find a way to secure parental leave for all kinship carers, to ensure that we find a way of helping local authorities legally back family-led plans where it's an alternative to care, and finally to follow the guidance that the DfE have published through foundations, which recommends, based on evidence, that financially backing kinship carers as an alternative to foster care really does work.
I thank my honourable friend for his many points and the significant work and knowledge that he has in this area, which he very keenly demonstrates. He's mentioned many points there, all which are very significant, and we will continue to consider. I'm afraid I need to make some progress. So. In addition, I'm pleased to confirm this government is supporting the delivery of 140 peer support groups across England. This is a vital service, giving kinship carers the opportunity to come together, and this will provide peer-to-peer support, as well as offering them the support to socialise and to meet other kinship carers, which will be a huge benefit to them. Alongside this, we're also delivering a package of training and support for all kinship carers across England. Both of these services provide much needed additional support and offers guidance for kinship carers, because we really recognise the early years trauma and other experiences that the children that they care for may be experiencing, and where they rightly so need that support, so that it will enable them and support them to do their best by the children that they care for and love. We are focused on improving support for children in kinship care. The role of the virtual schools head has been expanded, and I'm pleased to outline now includes championing the education, attendance and attainment of children in kinship care, ensuring that more children in kinship care receive the help they need to thrive at school. The renaming of the Adoption and Special Guardianship Support Fund will rightly ensure that families are aware of support that they are entitled to. It will incentivise local authorities and regional adoption agencies to make applications on behalf of kinship carers in need of therapeutic support, to ensure those who can access the fund do so. Keeping children safe is a key priority of this government. In addition to our £44 million investment to support children in kinship care and foster care, £1.3 billion of new grant funding was announced for local government to deliver core services, of which £600 million is for social care, including children's social care, just to highlight some of the other areas where this government is entirely committed. I just want to briefly talk about the National Kinship Pay and Leave. I know kinship carers will benefit from additional support and flexibility from their employers to help them balance with work and providing the best possible care to children they love. The Department of Education has published guidance for employers which sets out the best practice for supporting kinship carers at work, including how they can adapt internal policies, signpost existing entitlements, and create a culture of support to best meet the needs of kinship carers. In my closing remarks, again, I'm grateful to the Honourable Member for raising this extremely important debate in this House, and I wish to thank him again for bringing this matter forward, and to thank all of those that have contributed, and for raising the profile of better supporting kinship carers, which is a key priority for me and for this government. We want to continue to build on the great progress that we have begun and to do much more in this space. Thank you, Chair.
The question is that this House has considered government support for kinship carers. Many of that opinion say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order. Thank you for all contributions. Thank you to the Minister for back-to-back. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Order, order. We now move on to the next debate.